Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm back here with my good friend Aaron Leese, and today we're going to talk about a question that I see quite a bit in the audio developer community: the question of registering your plugin or making your end users register your plugins. How's it going, Aaron?
Hey Josh, happy Corona vacation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, happy quarantine day.
Coming to you from my locked down, undisclosed location in Chicago.
Yes, yes. Area 52. So we've been locked in and we've been brainstorming over videos that are a little bit different from the normal JUCE tutorials that I give. And of course, people have been asking about registration and how to do it. I have no idea where to start, and it's something I asked Aaron about, and he was nice enough to get here on the channel and tell us a little bit about some of the basics. So where shall we start, Aaron?
Yeah, that's the idea. So we're gonna do the kind of simplest. Hang on a second. We're gonna do the kind of simplest version we can think of here of registration, which means that it's gonna be not like super in-depth hack proof. Like if you're looking for that, that's not what we're gonna do today. What we're gonna do is the starting point. So like you've gotten a plugin together, you want to start distributing it, and suddenly it occurs to you that like right now there's no registration, there's none of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the simplest thing you can do is just have a bunch of keys that you can distribute to users, and the software will check and see if any of those keys, see if it's a valid key or not. So this is meant to stop kind of very casual copying, casual sharing of the plugin, but it's not meant to be hack proof in any sense. We'll talk about kind of at the end of it, like how we can make it better in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just a simple algorithm for we're going to create a bunch of keys. We're going to do a little dialog box that checks those keys.
Okay.
Sound okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to start this up. Let's get on the same page about what we're looking at. And then really there's only three functions we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
One is for generating the keys. We're going to generate like 1,000 keys for a particular plugin, go into the juicer, see how you would embed those into the plugin.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll take a quick look at the dialog class, which is where you enter the key, and then it, of course, checks to see if that key is valid or not.
Okay.
And that's really all we need to do.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm going to do this in a standalone plugin just because that's going to be easier to look at.
Mm-hmm.
It's quicker than loading up a DAW each time, but it's the same exact process.
Yep.
So first, we're just going to look at the UI. So again, we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take a minute.
Okay. So I guess my first question is, where is this code actually coming from? Did you think of all this stuff yourself? Is it coming from a library? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, no, this is all homegrown.
Okay.
We're just going to roll ourselves. And you can write this in an afternoon pretty easily.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm not going to touch too much on the component, the UI aspects of it. That's kind of going to be up to users.
Yep.
But then we're going to talk about, well, how do we just generate these serials, put them into a CSV file, write that file to the desktop, put that in the juicer then, and then how do we create the dialog, and how do we check against those keys?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. When you think of serial numbers, people usually generate, they're usually these long characters of strings, letters and numbers. So we're going to stick with that and do a bunch of serial numbers that are use capital letters and numbers, maybe 8 characters long or so. That's right here. I'm going to show you that. Here's our starting point. We're looking at this synth, put together the synth, and last minute we want to put in something with the serial number. This is the dialog I'm talking about. In my case, I just say, look, if this is a demo version, we'll talk about how this works too. I give a 30-day grace period. So you can do a window where you say, don't bother with a serial for 30 days. I can say not today. If I don't have a serial number yet, I'll say, I don't want to register, so I'm going to hit not today. Keep playing with it. If I decide later that I want to buy it, then I can buy it. But here, I'm going to restart it again so the dialog pops back up. So this registration dialog is the component, and I mean that in the JUCE sense, where it's a UI element. This dialog is going to look in the settings file, in this case just in a value tree. We'll get to that. And look for user information. If it finds user information, it's already registered. It won't show this dialog. So that's later on. We'll get back to that step. Step one is I've got my new plugin. Boom, it's going to show this dialog. So again, I'm not going to walk us through how to build the dialog and all the component classes. You have lots of tutorials on that sort of stuff already, I know. So for your users, let's assume you know how to get to this point where you've built a dialog, and now it says this is a demo version. Please register. Days since you installed, and we'll get to how we keep track of that, and then asks for a serial number. This little bit here is just something I'm putting in there for debugging purposes, so ignore that at the moment. I can say not today for 30 days, and then I want not today to disable after 30 days, so we'll get to that as well. If I click on Get Serial, we would hope that this does something smart like take me to the web store where, oh, here's that synth, I can buy it, $80, PayPal, etc. To get a serial number, but we'll cover that. And then register will trigger checking the number. So I put in a serial number. Let's try it. Oh, that's right. I have this right now. It is not doing anything. We just turned that off because so far there are no serials. It doesn't know how to check. So that's what we're going to build today. So there we go. Okay, register, not working. That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Now, first thing we need to do is just generate some keys. So I've created a little function here, static function that can live anywhere. It just says generate keys, hands a number of keys to generate, and it's going to do something. And in this case, it's going to build them, put them in a file, and put that file on the desktop for us to use. So let's go through that. Registration dialog, this UI is just already being created. So what I'm going to do is when it's created in the constructor here, I'm just going to go into generate keys, and then we can see what we can do. All good so far?
Yep, all good.
Great. Okay, so restarting the plugin. Plugin's going to come up. It's going to generate that dialog, and because I put in that little thing that says, whoop, generate keys, here we go. It breaks inside of generate keys. You can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, sometimes these, if it instantiates the audio, sometimes it can steal the audio, but
yeah,
you'll let me know. Okay, so this is a random number. JUCE comes equipped with pseudo random number generator, which we're going to make use of to generate these keys.
Yep.
The keys in our case are going to be serials. Well, they're called serials. They're going to be strings, excuse me, composed of capital letters and some numbers. And we'll get to that. And here's a, well, it's not a string array. It's just a string, but it's called serials array. So in my case, for my own purposes, I'm going to make a CSV file, comma separated values file, which is just a text file with a bunch of serial numbers separated by commas.
Okay.
We're doing it in that form is because it's very easy for database purposes. If you wanted to import this into a MySQL database or share it, it's just a pretty standard kind of file format for doing this. Okay, so create these three things, and then how many do we want to generate? In this case, we're saying 1,000. That's the default up here.
Yep.
So 1,000 times it's going to go through, clear the serial string, and then this little bit. This is where we generate the serial. This is pretty simple stuff. R is the random number, remember. So we say, give me a random number from 0 to 36.
Yep.
The reason that we do 0 to 36 is we're going to use ASCII to change these numbers. If we wanted to do just random numbers, we could just say, hey, generate a random number 0 through 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. Do that, and we could have serial numbers that were just numbers. That would be super easy. We're going to do a little more complicated and do capital numbers. Capital numbers happen to be, as you can see down here on the ASCII table, are ASCII code 65, and then 26 letters after that. So the reason we have a range of 0 to 36 is we want to do 0 through 9 on the ASCII table, which is the characters 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we want to do characters 65 all the way up, 26 characters beyond that. So I know that's a little weird. This is kind of, and it's not core to this whole thing. Like I said, you could use just numbers.
Okay.
But it's important to know how these characters work, right? You can look this up if it gets confusing.
Yep.
It goes through each of these numbers. It says, look, if the number is 0 through 10, just convert it to a string.
Yep.
And when we do that, we're going to get numbers. And if it is not that, if it's a higher number, 27, 28, 11, anything beyond this, then we're going to take that and we're going to use this char class, right? Which is fundamental C++ stuff. This is just, C stuff, really. This is just ASCII.
Yep.
So it's just saying, make a character. Which character? Well, character number 64 or whatever. Here, just to make it crystal clear, right? You guys have all seen this. I think most of your users are going to be familiar with this, but if not, we're going to gloss over it now, so you would have to go through and learn it. Yeah. So here's your various, hex value 21 is an exclamation point, right?
Yep.
Character on your keyboard has a different code associated with it. So we can use simple numbers and convert them into characters. That's all we're doing here. At the end of the day, after we've done this, how long am I making it? 10 times. You get here. Debug key, next serial. So the next serial has been added by adding these letters together, and we've got this serial number.
Yep. So one quick question. Does the fact that you're just using numbers and capitals, does that make it any easier or any tougher versus if you had exclamation points and backslashes and lowercase letters? I mean, does it make it
definitely not at this point?
Okay.
Because at this point, all I would need to do, if I have this plugin and I want to share it with you, I could send you the plugin and just send you the number, whatever it happens to be.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Again, this is made to stop the kind of easiest level of casual copying.
Okay.
And we'll talk about ways to improve this.
Okay.
Right? Because it's really easy to take this and say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tie it to someone's email and make it based on someone's email so that my work for you and your email. And or won't even work for you even if you put in my email. Right?
Okay.
So we'll talk about that. We're not going to kind of demo and get too deep into that level, but let's get through the whole process first, and then we can go back and talk about improvements.
Okay, sounds good. Yep.
Okay, so short version is we've gone through. We've made one key here.
Yep.
I'm just going to let this run, and we're going to watch. It's going to make 1,000 of these keys, and then here we'll just stop when it does. That was not 1,000 keys, was it? Oh, yes, it was. Look at that. Okay, so we've got our 1,000 keys, and we're going to write it to a file. Very simple process. Again, this is JUCE code, and JUCE tends to make a lot of things easy.
Yep.
In my case, what's it doing? File get special location, user desktop, and create a child file called serial.csv. So I'm creating a file on the desktop called serials.csv.
Yep.
And I'm going to make an output stream and write these keys to that file. Okay?
Great.
So, done and done. It tells me it's done. Let's go look at the desktop. And there is, indeed, serials.csv. You saw my baby for a second?
Yep. Saw
What was that?
Look
at that guy.
There he is.
Version 2.0, Josh.
Yep, that's right.
I'm the beta. He's the release. Okay, so we have this file, serials.csv. It's got 1,000 of these serial numbers in it. Now, how do we get that into the plugin? Right?
Yeah.
This is another, you'll hear me say this a few times today, this is another thing that JUCE makes very easy, which is nice. I'm going to open up the Juicer project for this synth that we were just looking at. Okay, right here. Now, as I recall, I may have actually done this with the binary builder, so we may have to go back and see if we have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe we can just drop it straight in there. Let me just collapse all of this. Do I have a resources folder? I do not. But I have a logo. Yeah. So just like the logo,
Uh-huh.
you can drop files in here
Mm-hmm.
on the juicer, which is this thing that comes with the juice. Will automatically recognize anything that is not code, and we'll treat it as like a binary blob
Okay.
and embed it. So that's what we're going to do.
Oh, I was wondering how you did that.
Serials.csv, drop it right there.
Yeah.
Save. Let's close Xcode. Regenerate the project. Does its magic. Now, yeah, let's go back into here. So now we're back into Xcode. Here's our check registration, and it should be right there. Yeah. There is a file called binary data, which is automatically generated by any juicer project. And here's what I found. It automatically creates a changelog, whatever this is, copying. And then here's the logo that we just looked at for a second. And here's our serials.csv.
Yep. Nice.
I could, well, let's see, it's kind of slow, but yeah, well, right in here. Serials.csv, right here, hard-coded, included in the plugin.
Wow.
So now it can be referenced by our registration. Okay, so let's a couple quick things. First, I'm going to go remove the generate keys. Now that we've got them, we don't need to do that again. And we're happy with this function. We can come back to it if we need to. Registration dialog starts up as usual. And now this time, when I click the button, which button is that? OK. I have a button. It's called OK. It's the one that says, what's it say, register on it, probably.
Yep.
When I click that, it runs this check registration function. The reason there's some extra stuff here that you might see as we're moving through all of this, by the way, because, yeah, SC offline. Most of my plugins do a different system where they're online and they call a server to check, a less hack-proof system. So it's harder for people to get a free copy. Now, I got to tell you, Native Instruments, when they put out a new plugin and it's got the latest and greatest and best security on it, 20 minutes later, there's still a hacked version out there. And we all know this. Back in our teenage years, maybe we downloaded a lot of that sort of thing. Some of us maybe. The point is, you're never going to get something hack-proof. You probably want something a little more hack-proof than what we're showing you today. We'll get to that. But the better system, when you eventually have a whole line of plugins and you have an API, you have a backend somewhere living on a server, being able to call that server and say, here's my email, here's my serial, tends to be a better system, more hack-proof. So we'll get to that. We can talk about that in a separate video. This is a much easier system, of course. Okay, so in our case, let's just see that let's run this real quick. This is just a test string to make sure we're getting the check registration. This is what should happen when we hit the register button. And then we'll uncomment this and go through it. While this is compiling, I'm going to take a look at this. This is just checking that we're in offline mode, and it's going to take a look at the serials. The way we reference these, as we just saw, was in the binary data blob that's automatically created by the juicer. So in that blob, we have serials.csv. We read it as a string array. Oh yeah, string array from tokens. So it just knows to split wherever there's a comma. It's going to split, create an array, in this case with 1,000 entries. Each one's going to be a different serial number. And then very simple, serial array, does it contain the serial that the user has put into that text box, right? Now I have a backdoor to make life easier, where I say if the serial is equal to this other string, then go ahead and give them a pass.
Yeah.
So this just makes it easier for me to distribute this for my own purposes, of course. And the nice thing about that is I can differentiate people who've used that string.
Mm-hmm.
Those are admins, right? So if they use that special string, maybe they get special things will appear, like this little debug button. It doesn't exist otherwise. It's that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we put in some numbers, hit register, and boom, we are right here. It tries to check the registration. It sees that we're in offline mode, and it's going to go through all of these, and what's it going to do? Sorry, key does not match. That key, not right, doesn't exist. Let's go back and look at our serial CSV. Here's a key that does exist. Let's try that. Register. Good. Now we could walk through it. And here it says it does exist. Thank you for registering. Enjoy the software.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Successfully registered. I now quit the program. Now, next time I start the plugin, or standalone in this case, I would like it to not show me that registration dialog because I'm registered. So now we're going to talk quickly about where do we want to save that, where do we want to save that information, how do we retrieve that information. So we'll walk through that. And let me just see which it's doing right now. Okay, didn't show up. That's what we want. So how did we do that little bit of magic? In our case, and I don't want to, I'm going to end up showing you stuff that's kind of irrelevant here, but when the registration dialog is created, it's going to hand the this dialog box a value tree with the global data. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this, so I could show you the specifics of how I do it, but I think what's more useful is maybe just to talk a little bit about property files, property settings, and value trees. I don't know if you've done videos on that. I assume you've done some videos on that, but JUCE has this great file. It's a great class called properties file.
Okay.
Properties file is just the settings file for a plugin.
Okay.
Any program. If you know how you install stuff on your computer, and you know that it installs an executable. If you're on Windows, it's in like the program files. If you're on Mac, it's in applications, you know.
Yep.
But you're pretty sure there's something else that it installs, and you're not totally sure where that is.
Yeah.
That's in this magical little directory. Going in closing folder. It's another special location. There's a special location called the user data. Okay, so while we're in JUCE, JUCE file, you can get special location just like we got the desktop, and there's one called user data directory, user application data directory. That's where we're keeping, that's where the computer systems keep settings files and things like that. On Windows, this is, it's invisible. It's app data / roaming. Why? On Mac, it's the library folder. There's actually two of these. There's one at the global level, and there's one at the user directory. One of them is invisible, etc., etc. Like, the point is, they're buried a little bit so as not to be too easy to find, but any savvy user is going to know where they are. A lot of your users are already familiar with this, I'm sure. So in our case, it's gray because here in Leese, my folder, library, application support, and then here's all my, look, here's Ableton's settings. Oh God, all the different versions. Yeah. I should read some of those, etc., etc., etc. So all the things I've downloaded, all my native instruments, special files and things that it remembers. And in my case, Stagecraft software. Here's for various programs, here's different settings files. And of course, I've built out quite a bit more to save. What's useful here for your users? What's useful here is that when you want to save something like serial number, all that stuff, you can do it by using this property files class. Let's go back to looking at that. You don't even need to specify, if I remember correctly, you don't need to specify a location because it will automatically get some certain defaults. You may have to tell it Oh yeah, options. You do have to send it some options, but I think there's a like get default options in here somewhere. Yeah, get default file. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a very easy way to just say program file options, get me my defaults, create a properties file, access it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets accessed as a property set, which is very similar to a value tree, or you can maybe even convert it into a value tree. I don't remember the specifics, but it's easy to pull that information off the hard drive. It's
Okay.
also very easy to save that information to the hard drive. You can set a storage format here. You can tell it to save as binary instead of XML.
Okay.
The advantage of that is that it's not human readable.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really want people that are computer savvy enough to know where to find this thing to be able to just double click, open it, and see, oh, there's your registration code,
Mm-hmm.
right? So advisable to store it as binary because it's not easily readable.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do ends up being a little bit different than this and would be less useful, I think, to your users in this particular case, but it's something very similar to this, where you're essentially just going to store it in a file. Let me just see what I do. Let's take a look and see if it saves it here. I think it actually saves when it closes. Oh yeah, here's all this stuff. Yeah, that's different. Yeah, it saves when it closes. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, see, I've got my own custom settings directory, get a file, etc. But it's effectively the same thing. So it's a properties file.
Okay.
That's an idea. So yeah, that part's pretty self-explanatory. When you start up, you just want to read that properties file, and then if it already has, in my case, I turn it into a value tree, global user data, and when I start, let's just walk through it. When I start this thing, it goes through and it checks to see if there's a serial number. And if there is a serial number, then it doesn't bother making the dialog visible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right here. Now, we talked a little bit about registered. So I am registered.
Mm-hmm.
I am registered. Or it's in first day. First day, I don't show the dialog either. Is that visible? False. Make the dialog disappear. That's
Yep.
all it does. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Ways to improve this, right? Additional thoughts and considerations. If you want a trial period, one of the things you can do, of course, is same way with that settings file, properties file. Just note the date that the first time this program ever runs. So the first time this plugin starts up and it does this properties file, get default options, creates a properties file, note that, it didn't exist, so write today's date. And then every time actually we can look at and then every time it starts up, do something like, yeah, get days since install. Checks, there it is. Checks on the user data, which is coming from the properties file. When was it installed? Reads it as a string, and then compares it. Get current time to milliseconds. Amazing thing. These computers all have little millisecond counters that starting at computer time 0, which is like 1970 or something.
Yeah.
You've seen that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then just check how many days it's been since it was installed, right? And if it's been more than however many days, 30 in my case, show it this thing. So that's one little improvement. Now let's talk about the fun stuff. We wanted to talk about ways that we could make this less hack-proof, right? You can quickly think of ways that you could make these serial numbers more complex, especially if you're collecting someone's email too. Let's say that we had a couple random letters and numbers, but let's say that they would all shift based on the letter that's in your email, right? So say we just take the first 5 letters of your email address. And we've already seen, right? We talked about how all of these ASCII codes, we have a number which corresponds to a letter. Well, okay, so we take all the letters in your email address, convert them into numbers, and then just add them. Add them to, one of the serials. Make sure that's the only valid one, right? Or MAC address, yeah. Here is MAC stands for Machine Access Code, something like that. MAC address is not in the sense of like Windows and Mac. This is in all computers have this, right? All computers have a not unique but almost unique MAC address.
Okay.
So somewhere buried in your computer is a little thing that says, "Here's my MAC address," and it's 32 characters long, 64 characters long, I forget.
Okay.
Bunch of letters and numbers and everything else, and it just says that's the unique identifier for your computer, right? When Native Instruments and other companies that are trying to be serious about registration, one thing they do to make things hack-proof is they note the MAC address every time someone registers. And if they see a different MAC address, they say, "Oh, okay, Josh must own a second computer." So we store this and we say, "Here's Josh's email, here's his serial number, he's got these 2 MAC addresses." Well, maybe you have a tablet, you have a third, or whatever. If all of a sudden they notice that you have 30 MAC addresses, then they might think about shutting you down, right?
Yeah.
Same idea here, right? Now this is all tough because you'll notice most of the things we're talking about now start to require you to have a backend, internet somewhere, right? The plugin, in order to get these MAC addresses, the plugin's got to call back to your server and say, the audio programmer, here's his serial number, here's his MAC address, here's another MAC address, whatever.
Yeah.
So that becomes a whole nother project. But for our purposes here, we can say that you could incorporate, once you know this MAC address, you can incorporate that into your serial system, right? In various ways. One is the error checking that we just mentioned. The other way is you could have unique serial numbers, where as soon as a user starts up this program, it can call in and say, "Here's the MAC address," and then you could have an algorithm that says, "I take that MAC address, generate a random serial, but then I add the letters and numbers from the MAC address to the serial to get a unique one that's only going to work on this computer." Because then when we get to that check registration, it's going to look at the MAC address and look at what the user put in, and if they don't match up, then it's not going to authorize, right?
Yeah.
So these are the ways that you can make serials more unique, and that's what most companies do. You can talk about encrypting this stuff too. First of all, you want to make sure it's HTTPS, and when the conversation should be back and forth. But you can get very complicated encryption algorithms, RSA algorithms, blowfish algorithms, stuff like that, which are in JUCE, are fairly easy to use, and do something crazy where you say, okay, given an RSA algorithm with this seed as the input, we run the user's email plus some serial, and we cryptographically come up with some secure number that can't be reverse engineered. That's all well and good. In most cases, that's somewhat overkill, right? Every program's hackable. No matter how you can encrypt it all you want, but when the guys over in Russia, because it's often Russia, are trying to figure out how to make the cracked version of this, they just look at the binary itself and how the communication goes back and forth. Somewhere in your plugin, there's something that says, "Am I authorized?" And it returns either a 1 or a 0. And all they need to do is change that. Right? So they don't really care what your algorithm is. There's always going to be a point of failure.
Wow.
You can do smart things like put redundant checks. Put a couple extra checks in your UI so that every time the user does something in the UI, it'll double check right? So it runs a different check over here somewhere that the hackers may not have noticed. So the first, you've got a cracked version, and you can do this. I've done this. You can have a cracked version that will eventually realize it's been cracked, right? Not in all cases. In some cases, if the people that wrote the cracked version didn't find the secondary check or the third check, it can shut itself down. It can erase the registration stuff, and then it can say, okay, re-register, and try to get the user to re-register.
Wow.
At best, you're only going to have limited success, but those are all the types of improvements you.
Wow.
I feel like I've been talking for a while. You got?
No, this is great. I'm just trying to soak it in. There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so many different things there, but
it gets deep. But you need to focus on making it so that it's not easy to casually copy, and then not worry too much about. You can't make it perfect, and you don't want to go too deep. It's often overkill. People kind of obsess on how to make it as secure as they possibly can, when a lot of times all you want to do is stop the people that are going to, stop people from casually spreading it to their friends. And most people that would buy it will just buy it.
Yeah. Wow. This is really great. Thanks for sharing all of this.
Sure thing, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what else could be useful in here.
No, I think this is enough. I think this is enough for people to go away with, and this would definitely keep me occupied for a while. There's a lot there, a lot that I learned even just outside of just generating keys and registration. Setting, just even things like saving settings and things like that. Yeah,
it's a fun project. I feel like people get hung up on this because, well, two things. Because one, the security aspects, where it gets your head spinning. Like, do I need to encrypt everything? How do I do this? But then two, even if you get past that, it is a it's a task that involves a few things. So it's, even though it only takes you could write this in an afternoon. There's 4 or 5 things that you need to know how to do. Generating the keys, embedding the keys, writing the check for the keys, and then also saving it, as well as the UI. So there's like 4 or 5 different tasks there that need to get done.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's great. I think we could leave this here and let people run off with it. But
cool, man.
Yeah, thank you once again for sharing this. This is a real insight into a lot of different areas of plugin development that I'd never even really considered.
What's our next video, Josh? We got lockdown, right? Let's make another one tomorrow.
we got to do debugging. We were talking about debugging.
Oh yeah, tips and tricks.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, so debugging is a big one. Yeah, let's do that soon.
Cool.
Great
Stay
stuff.
tuned.
Stay tuned.